How old are you?
I'm 30.
Okay. So you're no longer attractive.
It's like love thy neighbor, but then it's also like LGBT is gonna go to hell.
When the doors opened last night, that was not the first time that he saw me.
So wait, did I hear that correctly? Did this man say that he wants to address his trash behavior towards women in a show where he's supposed to find his future wife? Hi guys, welcome back to Nikki Faces Reality. We are here to discuss Love is Blind Season 8. The Lachey's tell us that there are more contestants than ever. So I'm thinking great. More couples, more proposals, more drama, right? Right? No guys, instead we get 6 episodes of people just yapping it up in the pods. I usually sit here and give you guys an in-depth recap, but if I were to do that, we would both fall asleep. I simply cannot break down episode by episode. So instead, I'm going to give you guys a quick download, a quick recap of what's going on with each couple, what drama occurred, so that we can set ourselves up to watch 7 through 12, which I imagine we'll pick up given the trailer. And while I was bored, don't get me wrong, there was drama there, at least like little seeds of what's to come. I just think that for season 8, my standards were really high. I mean, last season we had someone with a whole secret family. So while we don't have any secret families, it is implied that there is a stalker among the pods, and I think that is a little more eerie, a little more scary than shocking, but I'm really excited to see how that unfolds. Before we jump into the couples, make sure to like and comment your thoughts. I can't wait to read them. And subscribe, make sure to hit the bell icon so that you don't miss out on any of my updates for the rest of the season. Let's start this mess with David, Molly, and Lauren, which were one of the love triangles that we had this season. I'm gonna tell you right now, they immediately set up David for me to not like him, okay? This guy is going into each date being like, so what's wrong with you? And I know that there's a place in the world, there's a demographic where this is funny and this is charming. I immediately shut down to people with this energy. I'm just like, especially, I shouldn't say that. I was going to say something really mean. I just feel like people like David shouldn't be so confident, yet they are. So I'm like, okay, whatever, right? But somehow there are girls that like him in the pods. I also don't like this man because he's like, yeah, you know, I've been an ass to women and, you know, I'm here to confront that. And I'm like, wait, did I hear that correctly? Did this man say that he wants to address his trash behavior towards women in a show where he's supposed to find his future wife? Like, from the start, people are missing the plot, you know? And then he's like, yeah, you know, I work in medical aesthetics, so I have a warped idea of what a woman should look like. He's saying all of this on Love is Blind. Why are you here? So far, no redeeming qualities, and I feel like everything that he says about his backstory, it's people kind of like skirt around it really fast, but I think it's really loud. I mean, he says that his mom, like before she passed, she kept telling him that he needs to live with integrity because she feels that he hasn't been living with integrity. And I feel like he kind of has like a chip on his shoulder of like feeling like he's letting his family down and he wants to make them proud. He mentions a lot that his sister is like his toughest critic and he wants to make her proud, and he knows already that like she's not going to be happy or think that anyone is good enough for him if he leaves this experiment with a fiance. So again, I'm like, okay, yeah, you're grown and you should be able to make your own decisions, but it sounds like you value what your sister thinks. Why would you set your future person up to have this battle? But also, after hearing his backstory, I very much feel like this man is not necessarily ready for marriage, but he feels like this is the next step and he's kind of going through the motions. I feel like he's only ready for marriage because he believes that he's supposed to be ready, not because he truly wants it. So his first love connection is Lauren, and Lauren is like the typical nice Midwestern girl. And initially, you know, when he was asking her those weird questions, she was like, should I walk out of this date? Yes, you should have. But she is so nice and she doesn't. And she should have walked out of the date when she was like, yeah, I'm 30. And he's like, oh, so like you no longer look good. Like you've aged out. That was the moment that she should have walked out, but she didn't. But for some reason, these two are vibing, and after a few dates, I think that he kind of like undermined her. I think that it's easy to put her in a good girl box, but as they're talking, I think that he's seeing some layers. He's seeing that she's a tough girl. She doesn't deal with BS. And Lauren doesn't tell him, but she tells us that he's the only one that she is interested in. She is only here for him. However, she has a thorn on her side, which is his other connection, Molly. And Molly comes off as a pick-me. That is my first impression. I'm not saying that that is what she is. That is the impression that I get. This girl from the jump is like, yeah, I've never had any boyfriends, but she's clearly been involved with people. When he reveals that he had cheated in a previous relationship, she was like, yeah, well, I didn't cheat, but like I helped cheat, because she finds herself in these like series of situationships. But she says that she's cool with it, that she's never wanted to commit. She gives that energy of like, yeah, like I'm cool, like I'm just different, like, you know? And so in my opinion, seeing his connections with these two ladies, I feel like with Molly is fun, it's light, it's surface level. I think that with Lauren, I feel like he is afraid of disappointing her because he kind of holds her to like this pedestal. And with Molly, I feel like Molly is very similar to the people that he would already date in the real world. So he's really comfortable. She's not pushing him to reveal his deepest, darkest secrets. She's not asking him to like really dig deep. It's super fun. It's a little spicy. So like we've seen this setup time and time again. And the reason he says that he loves Molly is because she doesn't apply pressure. She doesn't make him decide between him and his other match. Except she is applying pressure in the quarters. So many girls were secretive in the quarters. They didn't want to like, share who they're talking to because it's getting down to the wire, and obviously not everyone's gonna leave engaged. Specifically Lauren, she was very like intentional about not talking about Dave. One, because she didn't want to make anyone feel bad, but also because she knows that like it could really F with her head if she knows what's going on. And Molly, from the jump, is claiming this man in the pods, okay? She's like, oh my God, I definitely found him. Like, I'm definitely his number one. Like, we talk about this, we talk about that, with anyone that would hear. And so obviously this is messing with Lauren's head, when she keeps physically distancing herself, and she's just getting hot because she's like, how could it be that they have this connection and we have this connection? And obviously I know that he's dating multiple people, but I don't want to have to hear about it. And so this has Lauren thinking like, does Molly know that I'm his other connection? Because if she does know, I think that this is messed up and it's manipulative. And for context, Molly didn't know in the beginning, but she did know towards the end and still kept doing this. So Lauren is trying hard not to crash out in the women's quarters, okay? But she is like hanging on by a thread because this is the only guy that she's talking to still. However, she hadn't told David. And for a sec, it looked like David was going to choose Molly, which is what usually happens. They usually choose the person that is like flat out being like, I'm all about you, even if they maybe have a stronger connection with someone else. And so there was a date that I really thought he was going to choose Molly. However, Molly is telling people in the break room that he was telling her that he was going to break up with Lauren. So she's telling other folks being like, yeah, he's going to break her. He's going to break up with her. It's going to be so awkward. To which David denied completely. And at this point, if I were Molly, I would be embarrassed. I hope that she didn't lie and was spreading that. And I hope that if he did say that they play it back. But he's denying, okay? So she's in the break room thinking that he's going to break up with Lauren. Meanwhile, she's like, Lauren has been on this date with my man for an hour and a half. Why would they need to be in a date for an hour and a half if he's breaking up with her? Well, in this date, Lauren decides to tell him, listen, I'm all about you and I'm hearing crazy things in the quarters. What's good? To which he's like, I didn't say that. And also, I've been waiting to hear you say this. So after he got this declaration from Lauren, he did break up with Molly. And Molly was like pretending to still be cool while she was getting broken up with. But then she goes back to the quarters and breaks down and tells Lauren like, yeah, he's definitely saying what we want to hear because I really thought that he was all about me. And here's the thing. I feel like, and this is a projection, I feel like girls like Molly are trouble. She's not going to take this lying down. She says that she was acting cool because she's like, my person's going to choose me. And I feel like she's gonna be like, we had this connection, I didn't make it up, I'm gonna figure out a way to see it through. In the quarters, they're all hugged up and stuff, but I don't trust her personally. David does propose to Lauren. Of course, she says yes. When they meet, they're a sweaty mess. He's calling her beautiful, and she is beautiful. I just feel like I don't trust him. I don't trust that he's not going to be an a-hole to her. And I also don't think that he's her type. But I would love to be proved wrong. Let's move on to the next mess. The next mess is Alex, Madison, Mason, and Meg. Everyone in this, square, rectangle, everyone in this is messy. When we meet Alex, he seems like such a positive dude. He's in the men's quarters being like, y'all, it's a good day, we're all gonna get married, and everyone's like, yeah. And he really seems like he's trying to boost the morale in the room. Learn a little bit of his backstory. You know, he went through like a really rough upbringing. He didn't look conventionally attractive, and now that he does, he still feels like that insecure person, and he carries that in the dating world. Madison is this beautiful, tortured artist. She also, like, was saying in the pods that she values intellectual connection over, physical, which automatically I'm like, okay, like, they sound like they would be a good match because he wants someone that really likes him for him, and it looks like that's what she's going after, and he seems like a nice dude. Okay, we learned a little more about Madison. She has a really rough upbringing, a lot of trauma. She kind of talks like Eeyore. Her parents had her as teenagers. She's gone through a bit of like a few addiction cycles with her parents, her stepdad. So there's a lot. She had to really grow up fast. She had to take care of herself, her siblings, and just in general, her like family life is not the best. And she kind of has this armor, but I feel like every other date that we saw her, she was like trauma dumping, but then being like, but I'm good. Like, I take care of myself. I'm fine. And with people like Alex, I think that he's going to struggle with that because he kind of wants to be a hero. And with a lot of her issues, there really isn't anything that he could do about it. He can just listen and be, a shoulder for her to lean on. But I don't think that that's enough for him. So you could see immediately like their uneasiness with these conversations. Alex talks about how he was bullied recklessly in school and how he like had ADHD and he like suffered with just learning and taking things in school to the point that he like failed out. His family is super academic, so then they kicked him out. We are dealing with people that have some really rough family life. They're very wounded and they desperately want to have a beautiful family of their own, and they're connecting in that. However, the way that they handle their trauma, the way they carry it, they handle that very, very differently. And this comes to a head when Alex asks her what her attachment style is, and she says that she's avoidant and he is anxious. And immediately in this conversation, I think he's anxious avoidant because he was like, oh, you're avoidant? I've dealt with that. I need to not deal with this. She's like, my default has been wired to be avoidant, but like I've worked really hard against it. If anything, I feel like you'll be able to see signs of it and be able to check in with me. But again, I feel like Alex needs to be the hero, and feeling shut out and feeling like he can't doctor her up, I think is really making him get into his head. And it's really awkward seeing just how quickly he shuts down. She really craves this connection with Alex, but what I'm also noticing about Madison is that she just needs to win. She needs to know that people want her, and she has another connection with Mason. Mason is an artist as well. He's a cinematographer. I feel like he doesn't shy away from tough conversations. When she shares her story, he's super empathetic, and they seem to have fun banter as well, and just Mason says all of the right things. However, repetition is a bit of his downfall in the pods, which I think is a setup by design. You often ask people similar questions. I feel like people tend to say the same lines over and over again of like, you're my number one, you're moving up on my list. And Mason gets caught up in this because he has another connection, Meg, and Meg, like Molly, is super vocal in the quarters. Meg is super bubbly, super forward. There was a moment that I was like, Does he like her? Because he kind of can't get a word in. She's just talking. But she makes it clear, like, I want you. I'm into you. Like, and he tries to be a little bit like vague because he doesn't want to hurt anyone's feelings. But I do think that he likes her. He says things like, yeah, I've never met someone like you. I've never had a connection like this. So they're vibing. And Meg is feeling so confident about this connection that she is constantly in the quarters being like, we're all gonna leave engaged. Like, he's just my person. Like, I just feel it, you know? Meg did know that Madison was his other connection. She was able to deduce, like, which girl was talking to who. So I'm like, you're being messy by doing all of this. Another situation where I would be like, ooh, this is embarrassing. But Madison is hearing Meg talk about Mason. And so I think that even though she likes Alex more than Mason, she wasn't ready to give up Mason because she wanted to see who he was going to choose. At the end of the day, these girls want someone who's going to be like, you're the one, period. And I don't blame them. I would want that too. However, it gets messy in a situation like this where you know this person is dating multiple people. But honestly, I feel like if Madison didn't know that he was dating Meg, she would have been let go of him. It would have been easy. But she's a bit of a, I don't know. She also has like pick me tendencies. I just feel like she's a bit self-righteous and like her ego is treating this like a game. And so the next time she gets on a date with Mason, I feel like she's kind of like asking him to be more direct, and he's a little too nice, and I think he interprets that as, well, I don't want to lose her, so let me just affirm her. And he's like, yeah, you know, like, I'm committed to this. I'm committed to you. Like, he tells her what she wants to hear, except she hears it and she's like, I don't actually want to hear it from this guy. And that's why I'm like, you're treating this like a game. You didn't even want him. Like, you could see she had a visceral reaction to hearing him say that. So she figures out, I don't like this man, and then she breaks up with him in the next date. He then tries to backpedal, being like, you know, I shouldn't have told you that I was going to commit to you. It's unfair to what I'm feeling. It's unfair to you. It's unfair to the other connection. And Madison gets upset. She's like, wait, why would you say something you don't mean? And like, sure, that is messed up, right? But also, you don't even like this man. You're going to go to your next connection. I feel like these people are in pods for hours. I feel like if I were to be on the show, I too would be repeating things to people. Just because, like, what else are you going to say? You're going to run out of things to say. I'm not saying that's okay, but I feel like I would imagine that that's something that happens very often. But Madison is making this a thing, and it's just so, I don't know, it felt like a bit nasty. And then she like throws a dig at him, being like, well, you started this with 2 girlfriends and now you may leave with 0 because I talked to Meg. Why are you being messy when you don't even like him? I don't know, it just felt a little vindictive to me. I didn't like that. So this man is spiraling, okay? Madison goes to the break room, tells everyone that she broke up with this man. Meg is a little happy to hear that, but then she's like, wait, that means that I will never know if he's gonna be with me because he wants me, because he chose me, or because he just doesn't have another choice. Like, his other connection left him. His girlfriend has a boyfriend. And you could see her kind of like start spiraling about that and being like, I don't know what to do. And this is why you shouldn't be bragging about a man and being like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be engaged, when you know he's dating other people, because this is another embarrassing situation. Meg goes in to talk to Mason and he's, laying up the charm. He's like, I was spiraling about this, but I know my Meg, and she would come in with a positive attitude. And Meg is like, yeah, I was positive until now. I was positive until I started thinking back to our dates, and I'm here telling you, showering you with affirmation, and I'm thinking back, this man is giving nothing to me. But you were quick to affirm another girl, and now you're affirming me, but are you just affirming me because you have no choice? I like you, but I simply cannot live with that thought. And she breaks up with him. And I didn't see that coming. I felt like Meg was going to leave engaged no matter what because she wanted that desperately. I felt like she kept like bringing it up in the quarters. I just didn't think that there was a possibility that she would leave here empty-handed. But I gotta give it to her. From day one, she was so clear about where she stood. She was so clear that she wanted him. And he wasn't giving her the same energy. I do think that he liked her. I just don't think that he affirmed her. And there could have been a way that he could have like told her to hold on. But hearing from Madison that he was like ready to put everything on the line for her, and he didn't even give like a crumb of that to Meg, I understand. It can be argued that she broke up with him because of ego, and I get it. But also I feel like if this was the man for her, she either would have just sucked it up and made him work for it. We've seen that before with what's their name? I forget the couple that he like picked Irina at first. I forget their names, but it's happened before. People have ended up with their second choice. And I think in the trailer it looks like they maybe spin the block and like try dating. So we'll see more about them. But the point is, freaking Mason leaves with nobody. Meg leaves with nobody. When it's time to see, you know, freaking Madison and Alex, Madison's like, yeah, like I'm all about you, and he's really happy, and they decide to be boyfriend and girlfriend. But now it's time to decide whether or not they're going to take the next step and get engaged. I want to address though that Alex is equally messy in all of this, because he knew that Madison was going to break up with Mason, yet he's in the men's quarters affirming Mason, telling him that he's got it, patting him in the back. But Mason didn't know that Madison was with Alex. It just felt so shady, and the whole time Alex is laughing because he knows all the drama that's happening in the women's quarters. And so the next time we see Madison and Alex, they're supposed to be talking about their relationship, you know? And instead, Madison is sharing how the breakup happened, and she's a little pissed that Mason, quote unquote, lied to her. To which Alex is on Mason's side, and he's like, hey, like, you know, he felt probably pressured. You know, this is a tough situation. He probably felt this for you, but also felt this for Meg. And Madison is real big mad that he's not immediately validating her. He notices that she's pissed. He apologizes. He tries to switch up the topic, and Madison is just shut down. And this is the avoidant coming out, and he's registering it, and he's like, like, what is this? Like, I can't get through you. And she tries to like talk about like what the next steps are. And I'm like, girl, you are so immature. You are not ready for marriage. Like, you're not as progressed as you think you are. And neither is Alex. I feel like Alex is portraying himself to be someone that can only be with you on a good day. And like, to be a person in the world, like, there are many bad days, and you need to be with someone that can handle it and doesn't make it about themselves. So it's just not a good match. And he tells her, he's like, yeah, I may think that we have a connection, but we are nowhere near ready to take the next step to be engaged. It's clear that these two trigger each other, and it's probably for the best that they are apart. So the next step love triangle, which isn't really much of a triangle because it dissipates really fast. It's Devin, Brittany, and Virginia. Devin is a basketball coach. Him and Brittany, I think that's how you say her name, right? Brittany, are really bonding over basketball. They bond immediately over their family values. And same thing with Virginia. Virginia, though, isn't into basketball as much, but she was a dancer. Virginia is a knockout. She is the whole package. I was like, girl, what are you doing here? She has a doctorate. She works in healthcare. She used to be like an NBA dancer, which I was like, girl, why did you give that piece of information? Because that lets everyone know you are a hottie. The reason she says she's here, she's like, we are in these vessels for a limited time. Like, I need someone to want me for me. Overall, I feel like he's really vibing with these ladies, but I thought that his number one would be Brittany, because Brittany was such an open book with him, and Virginia was a bit more reserved, and I think that he wanted more like depth. And Virginia was a bit more reserved, and I feel like Devin constantly mentioned, like, I'm here to look for a wife. I know I'm gonna leave here with a wife. I need you guys to open up. And so we see him have a moment with Brittany where he shares, I think, this big source of pain, but also a story that exemplifies his faith. He says that he was like experiencing this really bad pain and he kind of abused ibuprofen and he just felt a lot of shame. He felt really lost and he just couldn't accept the fact that he possibly couldn't play basketball ever again. And it was a source of depression, but he turned to God. He's super connected to his faith, and through prayer, God spoke to him and was like, get a second opinion. When he got that second opinion, got hip surgery, and boom, pain is gone and he has his life back. But he's going into this wanting to tell his future wife everything because this is a source of shame that he wants to release. He's better now. And Brittany receives this and she gives him no judgment. She empathizes with him. And you could see that he feels like relieved. In the vein of being honest and releasing shame, she shares that she has had experiences with women. She doesn't label herself. She doesn't feel the need to do so. But I do find it, I don't know, I still feel like she has internalized shame that she is working through, which everyone has their journey. And Devin asks her, so does that mean that like you're not attracted to women anymore? And it's like, I'm not saying that she's bisexual, but I do think that in general, as an example, this is a misconception that when people are bisexual, they're looking at everyone, after everyone. You can be with one person and just focus on them. You're not like out here. Just like if I'm in a heterosexual relationship and I'm with a man, I'm expecting my man to just have eyes for me. I'm not expecting him to look at all women. It's the same thing. I thought that was like a weird question for him to ask at his big age. She didn't judge him though. She was like, no, if I'm about you, I'm all about you. But he tells her, he's like, I'm going to have to process this. I don't know if this is something that I can like, deal with. And you could see that he's like shutting down. She was his number one up to this point. And I'm like, yeah, I knew from this moment that he was not going to marry her. And he didn't give her like any like affirming language. He didn't tell her we can get through this. It was very much like, full stop. I don't know if this is something that I could work with, which he is within his rights to not want to be with someone that's queer. But I can recognize how that's not the reaction that she would have wanted as well. And I do want to highlight though that Virginia and Brittany are probably the most mature people in the quarters because they are aware that they're both dating Devin and they're talking about their conversations with Devin to each other and are not being catty about it. They're not tripping each other like Virginia joked. They're just talking about it. It is what it is. They know what they signed up for. And he's going to choose the best person for him, Our girl Brittany takes a beat. She takes a day to reflect. She did not see that his reaction was promising. And obviously, she shouldn't have to compromise her identity. And she shouldn't go into something feeling judged. So she actually broke up with him. And she communicated that with Virginia. And in her breakup conversation with Devin, she told him, I know who your other person is, and she's amazing. And that was it. And so in this moment, I feel like you could see the switch in Devin's head where he's like, okay, Virginia is a great choice. I don't think Brittany's going to be the one, but I'm not getting what I need from Virginia. He tells her, he's like, I feel like you're a little closed off, and if I'm going to propose to someone, you need to open up. Like, I need to know more about you. And she says, she's like, I'm not really one to open up. And honestly, I have a great life outside of here. I really could just leave if I want to, but I'm here for you. And that's great to hear that you have chosen him, but he's asking you to open up and you are not giving anything. All she says is that she hasn't had great examples of love besides her grandparents. And so she is just tired of the BS, but that's it. She doesn't give examples. She doesn't expand. And I'm like, girl, do you want to leave here with a husband or not? But she's amazing. And I think part of it is that she's like, because I've been screwed over, I have set myself up in a position where I'm constantly being pursued. I don't pursue. And when you're in the pods, you have to sell yourself. And she's struggling with that. And so I think Devin hears that and he's like, okay, so it's going to take some time for this girl to open up. Let's see how she acts when I open up. And he opens up about his basketball story and his, medication story. And I was curious to see how she would react because she's in healthcare, but she was super empathetic. She was actually crying with him. She was like, I'm so sorry that you went through that. And she also has a really close relationship with God. It seems like they share their faith. And she really loved that he has a really good foundation. And she also affirms that like every day isn't going to be a good day, and it's about who's going to be there at the end of the day with you to pray with you. And you could see that those were the magic words for him to be like, this is my girl. Eventually he proposes. She says yes. When they see each other, I think that they're like into each other. First I couldn't tell because they didn't do the instant kiss, you know. They were just like holding hands. You could tell that they were both just really nervous. She just kept staring at his hands. But eventually they did kiss, and I'm like, with them, I'm curious to know if their lifestyles will be compatible, because I think she has money, and I don't know if he makes a lot of money as a teacher. So yeah, and as a coach. So, and from what we saw, I don't think that they got to dig deep. So we'll see if their connection is enough to make it through to the altar. The next couple is Sarah and Ben, and I'm gonna be honest, at first I'm like, great, beautiful people, they're not giving us much, until they got to the conversation of politics, and I was like, whoop. Because when we jump in with them, this man is already saying I love you, and she's like, whoop, slow down, we need to get into the serious topics. She says that she got involved with politics after Trump's first election, and it really matters to her. To which he says, oh yeah, I didn't even vote. And she's like, wait, what? That's annoying. Like, why wouldn't you vote? She's like, okay, how do you feel about Black Lives Matter? And he's like, yeah, I mean, it sucks that this is happening, but honestly, I don't really know much about it. And she's like, you don't know about George Floyd? The thing that happened in your backyard, you don't know anything about the case? Like, that's concerning. Ben is super religious. He goes to church every week. Like, he talks about it openly. And she's like, listen, that's great that you feel that way, and I don't have a problem with it. However, my sister is gay. How do you feel about LGBTQIA rights? Like, what is your stance on it? He's like, oh, I don't have any problem with those people. Like, I have friends in the community. But she's like, are you going to act weird if my sister is around? Because my sister is really important to me. He says no. She seems to be okay with it thus far, but she's a little nervous because he's not as woke as she would want him to be. So she tells him, she's like, listen, these are basic human rights things. Like, you have to be more aware. And I get her. If he is expecting a wife that is going to be with him in the church week after week, if he wants that wife to be Sarah, he's going to have to open a book. He's going to have to dig into the things that she cares about too. But aside from the rough convo, these two are in it. They're saying I love you. They seem really connected. She's a little nervous though that he isn't as aware of like human rights things as she would like him to be. And she's like, are you willing to grow? And I love that he's like, this is not your burden. This is not your job to enlighten me. I want to grow. I want to be a better person, and I'm going to take that initiative. So they're locked in. I think that we will see if he's about it and she's about it when they get into the real world part of the experiment, when they're around their loved ones, their families, when they have to, step into their everyday routines. I personally loved their reveal. I love the way that he ran to her and he just couldn't stop kissing her. They both couldn't stop kissing. It's clear to say that they're attracted to each other. The next couple is Joey and Monica, and this was actually our first engaged couple. And it made perfect sense. These two match each other's freak to a T. He's super funny, super goofy. She gives off like goofy hippie vibes. And they're able to share some like real life things and then like laugh about it afterwards. I think that they're funny in spite of like their life experiences. Sounds like he has gone through some really tough like upbringing stuff, and he's had to like raise himself and look after his mom. And so he's super like preparing for retirement, has businesses, which is not something that you'd expect from his like goofy demeanor. Monica currently doesn't have a job. She's in between jobs and she has a little bit of shame of it. He's like, girl, like no worries. Like, it's so commendable that you're taking care of your family. Just in general, like these two are just, they got each other. So in their reveal, it was hilarious. First of all, this girl kept like jumping. I wanted to hold her down. She just kept jumping and like laughing, and like every time they kissed, it felt like a peck. It wasn't even like a passionate kiss, which I'm like, girl, stay still. But he was super self-conscious. He was like, what if she doesn't like me? Because he was wearing like a goofy printed shirt, which that's his thing. But I think that that's her vibe too, because she was also wearing funny prints in the pods. She's looking at him like, you are my Tarzan. This is a fantasy. I think that they are vibing together. First impressions, I think that they're giddy. I'm curious to see what they will look like once the high and the adrenaline leaves their body. But on paper, they're a good match. Last couple I want to talk about is Taylor and Daniel. And let me tell you, for most of these episodes, I was like, y'all are so vanilla. I mean, this man was ready to get on a knee episode 1, and he did. He got on a knee a few times. He was ready to lock her down. The funny foreshadowing is just, I can't. The whole time these two have talked, they have had so many coincidences, and there's just so many parallels in their lives, and they just want the same thing. They talked a lot about Christmas and wanting to, have matching socks and matching ornaments and the pictures that they take. They are really like talking future tense. This is the life that we're going to build together. So it was no surprise to me that they got engaged. Normal. They see each other. They won't stop kissing. He was a little, self-conscious that he's a little short. I don't think he's that short. He's 5'8". She didn't mind. They were kissing the whole time. It was great. I'm like, okay, forever starts now. We see her 24 hours later, puffy-eyed from crying in her hotel room. And she's like, the doors opened and he looked a little familiar. You could tell that she was going through the motions, where she was possibly like gaslighting herself. And she was like, no, like, I get a bunch of like requests and followers, and I recall seeing a picture of this guy in front of a Christmas tree and a drink, and I just feel like it could have been him. And the reason she's freaking out is because she's like, I have basically like all the facts about me on my bio. I have that I'm a nurse in my bio. I have that I love Christmas in my bio. I have that I love Taco Bell in my bio. All of the things that would be able to match someone to me. They're definitely setting this up like it's like someone that's a little obsessive situation, right? But here's the thing. They're in Minneapolis. It's a small town. I feel like you are bound to know someone that knows someone. You're bound to have mutuals in the pods in a city like this. That's one. Especially if it's like recruiting the hotties. Because that's another thing. The producers of this show are notorious for scouting people on Instagram. It sounds to me like she has a lot of followers. Like she has an account that many people would just like follow and whatever. So it's no surprise to me that a single guy would see a nice looking blonde in his town and follow her and not think anything of it, because it's like, whatever, she has a bunch of followers, I'm just another number. However, I understand her being a little upset because this experiment is about you building connection without knowing what someone looks like. It's possible that by their 4th date, he started putting things together and being like, I think she's that girl. But I don't think that he would have known that date 1. But I think she's upset because she's like, feels a little deceived that if he did know, he definitely knew halfway in and he didn't tell her. So the whole time he has the upper hand of knowing what she looks like, and she has no idea who he is. So like, I understand why it may feel like a bit uncomfortable. But then we see her go meet up with him, and she's like, we need to talk. And he's like, yeah, whatever you need. And she's like, yeah, so you looked familiar to me. And you can see he looks a little guilty. But I'm not sure if he's guilty about what she's accusing him, but he's guilty of something, And she starts talking about the picture, and she's like, yeah, like I saw that, you know, that this person followed me. And he was like, well, I don't follow you. And she's like, well, you must have followed and unfollowed me. And he doesn't react to that, but he's like, no, like the picture you're describing, sure, I have a picture in front of a fireplace. Sure, I have a picture in front of a tree, but not holding a drink. And the whole time they're talking about this, I'm like, Taylor, pull out his Instagram. You are now in the real world. You have your phones. Ask him to pull up his Instagram, see his Christmas photos, and see if that's the picture that you're thinking of. Because you could just be overthinking. This is something that she has said that she does. So first confirm whether or not this is the guy that you're thinking of. But then I'm also like, the fact that you haven't done that yet, could you be making this up because you just didn't like him? She said after the reveal that he's her type, but maybe she said that not to hurt his feelings. Maybe he isn't her type and she's trying to get out of it. I don't know. The whole situation felt really, really weird to me. So I'm very curious to like what's going to come of this. Is he going to come clean? Is she over exaggerating? Like, did she make this up? Who knows? Yeah, you guys, I will definitely keep up with the upcoming episodes. I definitely want to know how this ends. I will report back to you guys and give you my opinions. Make sure you're subscribed so that you don't miss out on any of those updates. It may be a little late because I'm going to go on vacation for my birthday. But I will definitely circle back and touch base with you guys because the trailer for the remainder of the season looks juicy. So I hope that it picks up because this was a bit of a doozy. But yeah, you guys, thank you so much for watching and I will see you in the next one.